Hello guys, welcome back. This is Mr. Barasa here, and today I invite you to my channel here, and today I'm going to talk about finance literacy. So actually today I want to talk about the importance of having an emergency fund and how you can build this emergency fund. So number one, I don't know if you know what's an emergency fund, but if you know and if you don't know, we're here today to learn. So an emergency fund is that money catered aside to be able to assist you when it comes to an emergency that does not knock. Actually, whenever there's an emergency, assuming something like being sick, maybe like if you have a car, when your car fails, that means that's an emergency. Now, in that case, will you go for the other accounts in terms of working capital if you have a business, or you will go ahead and get it from a loan or anywhere that you are trying to think of? So here today, I want to tell you the importance of emergency fund that will actually help you in that case of scenario. So if anything like an emergency, kind of if you are sick, or maybe your car has just broke down, or maybe even any kind of an emergency, be it what, but if something that has been it's unplanned, that will just happen all of a sudden, this is the importance of you having this an emergency fund, and it will help you without going to borrow a loan that you didn't plan for, without you going ahead and digging into your account that you had set aside to help you in terms of investment. Now today I want to take you through all the 6 steps that involves in this emergency fund building. But most likely, I want to tell you one thing, that worldwide has been research, and they have known that most of the people actually they stay and live. Most of the people, statistically, it's above 60% of people that live without this emergency fund. And actually, if you live without this emergency fund and you are an investor, or you're working towards achieving your financial goals, maybe for long term or short term, eventually if something happens in between, it will become so difficult for you to achieve this financial development kind of ladder, in terms of raising the ladder of your financial status. Now, my name is Barasa, and let me start the importance of this emergency fund. Number one, emergency fund acts as a shock absorber. Have you ever been hit? Assuming you be hit and you put on a shock, kind of a sponge. If you are hit with that sponge, that means you won't hear, or you won't feel that pain. This is the same case with an emergency fund. If anything happens, assuming anything like sickness comes in place and you didn't have even the health insurance in this case, if you have an emergency fund, it acts as a shock absorber in this manner. If you have built this an emergency fund, you will just go withdraw some money, because it has to be in a liquid form where it can be easily be liquidated. You just go withdraw, and you have to use this money as for that purpose if you are sick. Now, assuming if you don't have this money, what happens in that emergency fund? So this is what happens. You will go borrow money that you didn't plan for, and most likely you may end up getting into microfinance schemes that actually give the higher loans in terms of rates, and this can eventually lead you to poor investment kind of planning. Number two, importance of emergency fund. You will have a peace of mind knowing that you have you covered. you are covered in terms of an emergency. Most of us currently in Kenya, you may find someone working but is so having worries. So this is the case that I'm telling you today. If you decide to build an emergency fund from today, you'll have that confidence, you'll have that peace of mind, knowing that if anything happens in between, you are covered. You'll not be afraid of anything. So by that, it helps you to be more of peace of mind and relaxed in terms of whatever you do. And then number 3, it helps you not to borrow what you did not plan for. And this happens mostly if you don't have this emergency fund. As for me, actually, I've built this emergency fund for my case, I'm building it still, but for 1 year. I've built it for 1 year and I'm continuing to build it. The same case to you. You just have to decide. You just have to set things right and decide today is today and start. And then importance number 3, it gives you confidence of investment. It gives you confidence of investments. So if you want to invest, I'm assuming you want to be someone who is projecting to be building wealth, you must have this emergency fund. If you have it, you'll have that confidence. I mean, you can invest in anything, knowing that you are covered. You are covered in emergency fund. That if anything happens to those, even to those investment, and you have no money, if anything happens in between, you are covered. And that is what it happens when you have this emergency fund. It will give you an emotionally well kind of confidence. Even if you just talk with some business people closing deals, you know at the end you can even withdraw all your money and invest in something that you know if anything happens, and I don't even have some liquid, but when you look back, you have an emergency fund from which you can liquidate and have you sorted and have yourself sorted when it comes to an emergency. So let's dig down to 6 steps to build your emergency fund. Number 1, you have to assess your expenses. This is where most of people don't know how to go about this. Number 1, there are 2 types of expenses a human being must incur. The one is called a want, and another one is called a need. These 2 forms to expenses, but there are two things that are different: a want and a need. So if today you are told to walk naked in the street, will you do that? No. Why? Because that is a need. But if today you are told you must put on a Gucci kind of a t-shirt or a cloth, if you don't have that money to wear that cloth, will you go for it if you cannot afford it? No. Why? Because that is a want. That is something you can do without. So putting on a cloth, that is a... I'm giving you a second. Putting on a cloth, that is a... Putting on a cloth, that is a need. But putting on a branded cloth, like brands like Gucci, Polo, working with brands, that is a want. But a need, it's something that you can do without. A want is something you can do without. For example, grocery. You can't sleep on an empty stomach. That is a need. Clothing, that is a need. A loan. A loan in this case of an emergency fund, if you've taken a loan, in terms of assessing your expenses, that is a need. But At some point, I can also say it's a want. So you have to assess your expenses, and these expenses you have to focus and identify what are your wants and what are your needs. Why am I saying this? This is because these expenses you have to know every expense of every month. You have to go down with your pen, track every expense that you do incur every month and put it down on paper. Now, after having put it down on paper, that's where you will know as for every month, this is the expense that you incur as single person, or if you are married, you as a family. Now, if you are married and if you are single, I most definitely can recommend two different kind of emergency fund. You know, an emergency fund has to be as from 3 months and above. So if most definitely you are single, I can recommend you start with 3 months as you go up to 6 months. So after having known your expenses as a single person, you go ahead to do what? To calculate the 3 months expenses, and then you multiply or you add all those expenses, and then you'll get on how much to raise. So if assuming you have done the calculation and you get 500,000, that is your 3 months expense. That means you would have to take 3,000 Kenyan shilling and divide by 3 months, and then you will get that calculation. Assuming you are a family and you need to raise this an emergency fund, I'm recommending you start from 6 months up to 12 months. And in this case, I'm assuming, let's just assume 500,000 as your emergency fund. You'll have to take that 500,000, meaning this 500,000 was that expense that you used, you calculated per month times 24 months. I'm assuming you are building this. I'm assuming you are building this emergency fund for 1 year. So if it's for 1 year, you will take this 500,000, which is your expense that you multiplied and add as for 1 year to be 500,000, and then you divide this 500,000 by 12 months, you will be getting around 40,000 a month. So that is what your budget will be for every month. Step number 2, you need to set target goals of amount to be contributing every month and how you will achieve it. As I've just shared previously, after having known your expenses and having known on what you want to be achieving as day one, as to from that the first month, you need to have a clear goal on how you'll get this money from, where you'll get this money from, and how you are going to set yourself and make sure this money is saved. And then this means there are some expenses that you need to do away with them, so that you should have a long-term goal in terms of if you want to build it from 3 months to 6 months, that I believe is a short-term goal. And then if you want to build this emergency fund for long-term goal, then you need to focus like for 3 months and 1 year. Now, it can take you more than even 2 years to build this emergency fund. Like as for me, I'm building it, and currently I'm on my first year and I'm still continuing building it. I think regarding my calculation, I'll be hitting my target within some 6 months to come. Now, you have step number 3. You need to have what we call a budget creation. A budget creation. Now, this budget creation will involve cutting unnecessary expenses. Unnecessary expenses. And if it is possible, they automate these savings. In this case, I usually tell someone, if you do get a salary through the bank, then it's good for you to go ahead and instruct the bankers to help you build an account that this money will be saved in. If you can work with insurance companies, well, you can go ahead to do that. But remember, the end goal of this money should always be in a liquid form whenever it's needed in the shortest time possible. And then step number 4 is the right account choosing. The right account choosing should always be available and accessible. I've just talked about that one severally. This money should always be available when it comes to emergency event. Assuming you get sick today, how fast can that money help you? This is why it's called an emergency fund, because this money should always be ready whenever an event occurs that you don't need to go back to your other accounts of investment. And that this amount is what will help you not to go to those accounts. Yeah, and then step number 5, increasing your income. As one thing I can recommend here, an emergency fund, you can always start slow, and as time goes by, you keep to increase in terms of saving. You can start with 10,000, you can start even with 3,000, depending on how much you want to start saving and how far and how much are you targeting to reach at the end of the period you have put for yourself. So you have to increase on your income. Now, increasing on your income will also help you in increasing in your savings in terms of saving for your emergency fund. In this case, campaigning for you starting side hustles. If you are working, if you are in a 9 to 5 job kind of a career, you can start today to have your side hustle as you work along in your main job, and by that you'll have to increase your savings in terms of saving for your emergency fund. And then things like freelancing, you can do freelancing. Those things that don't need you much time, don't need much of your time, like freelancing, you can do those. And then you can also help to build upwards as you increase your contribution. I've just told you that you can as well do this as you increase your income level in terms of saving. So be focused on one goal. Start small, but keep increasing. Don't ever doubt yourself. It's only you who you can do it. You are the best version of yourself. No one can come in and change you. No one should ever tell you that you are different like others. Just believe on what you say and just believe you can do it. And it's by your word of your mouth that eventually will lead to your action and whatever you need to happen in this world. And then stay motivated. That is my number 6 step of building an emergency fund. So staying motivated, in this case, I would say you have to track your progress. If you don't track your progress in building emergency fund, you will find yourself losing the track and not doing the right thing that you set goal to do. In this case, I'm purposely campaigning for something we call accountability partners. You can have that one friend, or you can have that spouse if you are good enough and you found someone that you can share a world with him or her, and you are fine and you can do these things together. Then I can tell you, you are the most person that you are gifted in this world. Because having someone that you can talk, sit down and have a talk on a financial literacy kind of investment, if you are a partner to one another in terms of a husband and wife, then this is a good thing that you can do together. Come at the end of the month, you have to sit down and ask each other, what have you done and how far have you reached? We had agreed on this. How far are you and how much have you done? We had agreed on this, but you didn't do this. Why are you not doing that? So this is something that you can also have a friend that you can be accountable to each other in terms of tracking your progress and reward your milestone. If you happen to achieve the first 3 months, always have something that you can reward yourself with, even if it's just dining out for just a day. That's not bad because you have achieved it. It's not something easy. It starts with sacrifice. It starts with a great mindset. And if you have that mindset, I'm telling you today, you're going to achieve it. And then always have positivity. They usually say, where there is wind, there is way. That's how positivity works. When your mind gets positive, everything works perfect. When your mind stays positive, everything works perfect. Thank you once again. This is Mr. Barasa here today. I'm so lucky you just clicked on this video and you've watched until this far. I would like to tell you today, if you have anything to tell me down there in the comment, kindly comment, share this video and like for others to get to know about this content of emergency fund, as it will help them to overcome their downfalls in terms of investment and more other.